And I'll hand it over to Peter Crump, who's the Managing Director of Viper Designs, but also the Chairman of the Goldsmiths Craft and Design Council. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Benita. You said everything I was going to say to introduce myself, so I'm now going to just crack on and say how delighted I am to welcome everybody to our very first webinar, the Goldsmiths Craft and Design Council. I'm pleased to say that we've got an interesting array of people here this evening. We've got our wonderful partners from Champagne Gosset, and also two past winners of the award that Champagne Gosset helped us with. And finally, Andy Putnam, who is a trustee in Silversmith and judge for both the 2019 and 20 competition. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a really nice conversation about what the competition means to people to enter and to support, and maybe we'll take some questions later on. So I'm going to start by asking David and Scott, who won the competition, David in 2019, Scott in 2020. Let's start by asking David, just briefly introduce yourself and why you would go in for this competition.
Yes, I'm David Stonehouse. My background is I studied silversmithing and jewellery at Sheffield Hallam. I worked for David Watkins, Professor of Metalwork, for a couple of years as an assistant, and then moved into product design and spent 20 years in product design and left a few years ago to get back to things. So one of the reasons for competition was just lift my profile to myself against what I thought was out there in terms to be judged by my peers. So motivation, and it's always good to have a deadline to force you to get something done.
Fantastic. And what was your sort of thinking and research process and kind of personal interaction to actually go in for this particular section?
I suppose as an approach, basically, really try and understand what the question was, trying to work on what the heritage of Gosset meant and was, and then to move into a sort of self-brainstormy phase to come up with a number of ideas. I'm always looking for a strong idea, and here the one that actually topped was the idea of effectively inverting this bottle shape, which is quite unique to them, and using that as the heart of the trophy. And then after that, it's a matter of refinement, try and make something that it looks balanced and well proportioned, and the deal and is on brand and on idea. And at the same time, technically trying to work out how you deliver that without having to water down the aesthetics to try and cope with the practicalities of forming something and joining. Typical ones made or lost on how the components are put together.
Fantastic. So Scott, how about throw the same question at you?
Yeah, well, I am very early in my career compared to David. I'm a silversmithing and jewellery design student at Glasgow School of Art. I entered the brief as part of a brief with university, so we were asked to enter into a live brief with the Goldsmiths Craft and Design Council. I chose this brief specifically because of my interest in silversmithing and tableware and the drinks industry as well. As David said, it's nice to work to a deadline, so it was good to have like a reason to investigate the drinks industry more specifically. As for the project specifically, I'm a gin drinker, so it was interesting to research the properties of champagne and the characteristics of champagne, like the values of the Gosset company as well. It was good I investigated them and like the traditions behind them. And yeah, more personally, I'm interested in like coastal settings and raw landscapes. So I began investigating like how water forms rocks, like formations by the sea, and tried to translate that in a sort of high-end way as opposed to more experimental. So it was about refining my idea from a contemporary design down into a usable piece of silversmithing and tailware, I suppose. Yeah.
So it's very early to say, but what effects has it had on you winning? Already it must have settled in your mind, and has it made a difference to your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic to get this recognition this early on in the stage. It feels really, good, and to feel that validation from the industry this early on is fantastic. And I feel like it's a good time to come as well. It feels like it's a good stepping stone, a good kickstart to the career. So it was nice to get the recognition from the peers and the industry, as well as like the tutors in the university and from my classmates as well. It's just been a fantastic experience. Yeah.
And for you, David, the same kind of kick?
Yeah, a real boost, basically. So, just for me, first time to enter, to get shortlisted, the letter turned up. That was great. I'm going to the award ceremony. To win the award and then to go in all of the 2D design section was just, I was flying that evening. It was, really good.
So part of the prize was that you actually went out to Gosset in France.
Yeah.
Must have been quite fun.
It was quite fun, and it's just circling back to your previous question. One of the reasons for entering was there was two reasons. One was I was really interested in the trip, always interested to find out about different industries, and the other was that the product was going to get made, and that was a big draw to me, to actually not just do a paper exercise, but to do something that was going to get made. So yeah, trip to Gosset over 2 days, early start on Eurostar. Funnily enough, lots of champagne was drunk, which was a real education for me. Spent the afternoon going around the vineyards, learning all about the orientation, the soil, the altitude, really, really interesting. And then on the morning of the second day, a trip around the cellars and the manufacturing plant and the bottling plant, and then finished off with a fantastic lunch. So what was not to like, to be honest?
So let's have a little chat with Jean-Pierre and Julien. What the relationship that you have with the Goldsmiths Craft and Design Council? How did that come about? What does it mean to you?
Well, I guess I will try to answer. Champagne Gosset is one of the few companies in Champagne to have been awarded the French state label called EPV, which means a Living Heritage Company in France. And because of the extent of our know-how as a champagne producer. And as a matter of fact, only 3 champagne houses have been awarded this label, only Bollinger, Roederer and Gosset. Therefore, there is a natural link between our know-how and the skills developed by the craft and design concepts. Competition is a good mean to prove one's skills. So as a matter of fact, for Champagne, we enter several wine competitions, including the IWSC and the International Wine Competition in London, for instance. And we do this all around the world. So accordingly, we thought it would be worth creating a link between Gosset Champagne and the Goldsmiths Craft and Design Council. And if I would quote somebody, I would say finally, as John Fitzgerald Kennedy said, arts incarnate the creativity of a free society. And we like to be linked with that.
So Jean-Pierre, you judged in the 2019
yes.
Section. Tell me about your experience of judging.
Well, I always find it easier to act than to judge. It was a very difficult task indeed. There were numerous good projects, and to select the right one was pretty difficult. However, I was not the only judge, so we had to combine our thoughts and come to a final decision.
Which you did.
We did, of course.
Excellent. And then for Julien, it's the first time you did it this year?
Yeah, first time exercise for me. My father said wisely everything on Champagne Gosset and the Goldsmiths, but when I can add it's maybe the two Gosset and GC&D are both in the pursuit of excellence of craftsmanship, and they are all promoting the excellence in their own industry. That's what I can add. And about the experience in itself, for me it was, as I said, a real first experience. It's always nice to be part of a first experience, to share idea and find a common consensus. Many projects were on the tables. I did first overall look on everything, and then I had a closer step-by-step look to every project. But I have to admit that the one of Scott really attracted me straight at the first sight from the beginning. And I remember we had to find a consensus and discuss with the judges, but the exercise was quite interesting, yeah. And I really thought like Scott respected the brief. It's a real piece of art. And as a French and as a Parisian, it reminds me a little about the structure of the Eiffel Tower. What I can say quickly.
Thank you.
So maybe I could bring Andy in at this point. Andy, you were judging on both years.
Yes.
You're a silversmith, technical. You understand. These are not easy pieces to make. What's your take on the pieces?
Well, first of all, 2019. So David winner, as Jean-Pierre said, it was a very difficult section to judge. There were actually 23, I think 24 entries, and they were all they were strong entries. There was a good level of entry, very high standard. So for David's piece to come out on top, it was a real finding moment. I mean, for me, looking at that design on the design table, obviously the designer at that point, of course, we don't obviously know who's done it. So he or she had done a brilliant job at presenting and also working out how it was going to be made. So from a manufacturing point of view, those points had been covered, and that was really strong. Of course, the amount of thought that had gone into that design, and it was just all round particularly pleasing. Some of the other strong entries that came close were maybe hadn't been thought through completely as how they would be made. Some of them would have been extremely difficult, bordering on the not possible. So this for me was an outright winner, and just the overall package, as David, as we obviously found out afterwards that it was David, as David explained, the thought gone into the whole process, the aesthetics, the feel of how it's gonna. I kind of got the feel that this came from someone that really knew what they were doing when it comes to obviously producing a piece like this. And
I would say, Andy, the fact that it was presented so well is a great help, rather than how great the idea is. If it's not presented to you correctly, it's not going to make the grade. Yes.
Although I must say there were a couple of entries that just had the final image without any detailed description, and they were strong. They were strong, but they weren't as strong as this one. So overall, this had the whole package. This had the obviously the beautiful design, the aesthetics, the thought behind it, And then as a real bonus, the you know, the breakdown of potentially how it was going to be made. In actual fact, you know, hats off, David. That's pretty much exactly how we're making it. So
Thank you.
So tell me, Andy, how the making's going. I know we're part way through the production.
we are. It's going very well. Hopefully we'll see a few images. And they are, so we've spun the main part of the trophy, which is the bottle part, the inverted bottle, and and the components at the bottom are being made. So here we go. These are the first images of the spinning itself. So Gosset sent us the actual artwork for the bottle, the line drawings, so that the shape is absolutely as it is, which is why I put it the right way up on the table as well, so you can see that it actually looks like the bottle. And then the other components are there. You might just be able to see there, in between the bottle and the base ring, there is the component which we're going to RP, which on the design itself is the little dark section at the bottom. So that's been rapid prototyped in wax form, and that will be direct cast. So that actually we did today, and that'll be a direct cast next week. And then the components to come together. And the next components we're going to start making are the two handles.
So should I go back to Jean-Pierre and just ask, this is completely new sphere for you to see metalwork made like this. How do you feel about it?
Well, I like it very much. In fact, to come back on one previous question you had, it's true that some other projects were equivalent or even higher in terms of innovation. But for me, David's project seemed to be highly efficient in its capacity of being actually produced. So, as said previously, it was, some other projects were very interesting, however, probably difficult to implement. And one main reason why I preferred this design was the fact that it took the image of this antique bottle to structure the concept. And this antique bottle has been, since the 18th century, the iconic shape of the Gosset bottle. So we have something which is iconic compared to the standard bottles that most champagne brands use. So I'm glad to see the bottle actually, and the trophy actually produced or being produced today. I'm glad.
And just remind us, for people who don't know, how will you use the trophy?
Well, there is an English matchmaker's trophy, and we also have a French trophy awarded to chefs. In England, it's to a team of younger chefs. So it will be a trophy given to, shown to the competitors, and a reduced model will be given to the actual winners. So we'll keep as, how do you say?
Perpetual.
A piece of art, perpetual piece of art we will keep in our cellars in Epernay, and we'll give a reduced image, like they do for Wimbledon.
But it's fabulous to me that it's a live trophy. It's something rather than an abstract theoretical design prospect. This is something that's going into life. It's going to be used, and as you say, you've got a piece of art as well. Fabulous.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
We are glad for that.
So Scott, how does all this seem to you? You've yet to think about making the piece.
Yeah, it's exciting. It really is exciting because, you know, when I was designing it, I did just think it was a design initially. You know, I thought I'm just going to create a design for this award, and just like it gave me an excuse to be making and researching and creating. And then when I won, the technical aspects started to trickle down in my head and go, ah, yes, okay, so we need to think about this logically. But I think it's exciting that it's going to, you know, I think it's an exciting challenge. It's going to be a challenge, I am aware of that, but I think it won't be a boring one, you know.
And the prospect of a trip to France after lockdown, that obviously that will inspire the making of the piece.
Oh yeah, and again, as I said, I think it's a fantastic time in my career to have this opportunity to come to, you know, a working vineyard and experience the professional industry hands-on, and not just, you know, researching on a website. I'll be actually there. Like, I think that's a fantastic time to come and focus in and do some primary research as well. Yeah, very exciting.
Very good. So I'll go back to Andy. Should we talk about the technicalities of this piece?
Yeah, so this one is a challenging, but we're going to use our design and RP skills. So Scott's going to send us the files, and we're going to attempt, but I'm pretty confident we can RP this in one piece. So that's basically grow it or print it, sorry, in wax. But we're gonna we do some trials first. In plastic, so you'll be able to see, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get this done to be able to show at the fair as well, if the fair continues, which I believe it is at the moment. So it's exciting because this is cutting edge silversmithing, as it were. We're hoping to be able to first of all grow this in plastic in one piece, and then potentially also then print it in wax in one piece, to then be able to cast it in one piece. So there'll be no, you know, soldering. So that's the plan at the moment. But what do you think, Scott?
Yeah, that's how I envisioned it. Was going to be a 3D printed piece that would then be cast. You know, the idea of imagining how that would be sprued up and filed, and, you know, a technical challenge. But yeah, I was really exciting process to be a part of, and I can't wait to see it physically and hold it. Even the plastic version would be great to see, you know, a scale and how it feels in the hand. And, you know, I think it's a good process because you can change it and print again and change it. And, you know, I think it's exciting to be a part of, you know, this process. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We might have temporarily lost Peter, but David,
yes,
while he rejoins us, David, can I interject and ask you what were your instant thoughts of your project going live so far?
Having seen the parts, yeah, very exciting. Yeah, obviously, as a designer with, you know, experience, you've got a sense of when you draw something, but to actually start to see it in 3D. There's always some surprises, some normally good, but in terms of size impression and stuff. But seeing it on paper, yeah, very exciting. And the fact that you're sort of 3D printing and then lost wax casting that little section, as opposed to maybe a traditional process of sort of chasing it, you know, fantastic mixture of traditional skills and cutting edge. So yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it's cool. It's very exciting. Excellent. You're further on than I imagined, so it's very exciting.
Oh, that's good. That's good. What is obviously disappointing at the moment is that you would all be visiting.
Yeah.
I know David, I know Rebecca, Jean-Pierre were due to potentially visit the workshop and see it being made, but we're doing our best to photograph and video. So hopefully, you know, we'll be able to share all that with everybody.
Yeah, no, that'd be really interesting. Yeah, I'll be really interesting to see how the little details evolve, basically, as you start to actually physically put it together, as opposed to think about it and do it on paper. So
yes,
there's always little challenges. So I'll be really interested in those bits, and just seeing it all together in real life would be fantastic.
Brilliant. How are we doing, Benita?
We still don't have Peter, but we can take a few questions because our attendees have a whole list of them, actually, which is great. So I'll start with the first one from Sue Coffey. This is to David Stonehouse. Has your experience in product design helped you in your return to silversmithing?
Oh, that's a good, yeah. Well, I think yes. I think there's something of the rigors of working in design consultancy that actually helps push a craft background forward, maybe. And maybe it's a disciplined design approach to go through iterations and to narrow down and expand as if you were your own client, particularly in a competition setting. And maybe to think about combinations of materials that aren't traditionally put together as a silversmith, so carbon fiber or whatever. So yeah, interesting.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Sue, for the question. Next question is from Tara Mansell, who is a former Goldsmith Centre Foundation course student, and she just graduated from DJ CAD at the University of Dundee in jewellery and metal design. And her question is for Champagne Gosset. So Jean-Pierre and Julien, her question is, did Gosset look at holding the competition with a French equivalent to Goldsmiths? And I don't know if one exists, but over to you.
The answer is this was a very good idea. And happily enough, the English had the first proposition. So we have other ideas for France at the moment. Yes. So I would say the exclusivity is for England.
Thank you for your answer. And then we have one more question from Sue Coffey for Scott Smith. As a teacher of product design and a student of silversmithing, how did you get inspired to follow this course of study? And also, how would you inspire students to follow this path as well?
So in school, I believed I wanted to be an architect, and I did work experience at a quite domestic architecture firm, and I realised it was quite mathematical and a bit more grounding than I thought it was. It wasn't designing these big contemporary structures for Dubai, you know. So I spoke to teachers, and they recommended getting into, you know, body adornment, these big expressive pieces. And so I then went to the city of Glasgow and studied jewellery design there, and I did a HND in jewellery design. So I didn't do an art foundation, I kind of went straight into a specific course. But from that 2-year HND, I realised jewellery and silversmithing was absolutely what I needed and what I wanted to do. And then since joining silversmithing and jewellery design at Glasgow School of Art, I found starting to hone in on a speciality in silversmithing. And because we've got such a range of, you know, tools and briefs and even tutors, you know, we try everything and throughout the whole discipline. And now I'm starting to hone in on tableware specifically and the drinks industry. Yeah, so it's been quite a direct journey, I'm not going to lie. So I think it's quite lucky or not lucky, I don't know.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you, Sue, as well. And I hand it back over to Pierre. Oh, sorry, Julien.
May I have one question to Scott before presenting the design which you won? Did you imagine many other projects, or it was the one straight from the beginning?
I sort of did imagine other projects, yeah. But then when you read the brief, I realized I needed to be more specific. I maybe created 5 different designs, and maybe 3 only fit the brief. The other ones were just what I would do if I was in the studio, you know. So I was looking at making, you know, whiskey tumblers and, you know, different pieces of tableware, and I realized, no, that's not the brief. So I had to go back and narrow down. So it's kind of a combination of all of my designs into one final piece, yeah.
Good job.
So, Julien, for you, how did it fit the brief? Scott said that he had several that he narrowed down to 3 that he thought fitted the brief correctly. How did you feel about it?
Completely, because first, the main idea and the aim was to reshape the glass of champagne, and also you needed to have a glass who respects the organoleptics of the wine. And I think in the overall idea of Scott, everything was respected, and it's even more nice because it's a real piece of art, and it's really attracting for the eyes. And yeah, as I said before, it was really the one who get into my mind first, and it's stick until the end.
And you feel it really reinterpreted the champagne glass?
It's a completely new, and for some classic people, it can maybe a bit too modern maybe, but as the work was to reinvent, and when you reinvent something, you think about something new, something about the future, another way to drink. For me, is completely respected.
I think for me, the fact that it's a completely new design or reinterpretation, but then come back to what Andy was talking about, it's completely new method of manufacture as well. So it ticks a lot of boxes to be quite a very special piece.
Yep, I guess so.
So we've been on air for nearly half an hour, and I haven't mentioned the dreaded word lockdown. So how about Scott? How's it affected you? Are you managing to get in to use a studio? Are you working? David, same question to you afterwards.
Well, I am a student at university, and universities are not open, so that has very much directly affected me. I've since then moved home to my family home, which is in the northeast of Scotland, away from Glasgow. And then started a temporary job as well at a supermarket just to earn some money as well. So it's a complete shift in where I thought I would be since winning the design award to working in a supermarket. But here we are. It's all the journey to get there. I started to create a home studio while I'm here, and it's a good excuse to clean the tools off and tick through what I got. So it's a change. I've been looking at processes that I can do at home. So I've been doing wax carving, which I haven't been doing before. So I've been using more traditional techniques again, and set up a small soldering station as well. But as for silversmithing and a workshop, I think it's a long time before I'll be back in a studio. Yeah.
Okay.
But do you have any online classes, or it's completely closed?
Well, we've been given online classes, and we've had weekly Zooms like this with our class where we present what we've been doing. But these have been research-led, or paper models and research gathering, as opposed to final outcomes. So it's getting us thinking, and I'm still engaged in the project and university, but I want to get hammering some metal, and I think that's a bit away. Yeah.
Okay.
So David, how about you?
Yeah, so interesting times, aren't they? So from a metalwork perspective, my workshop, there's only me working there, so I've been able to carry on doing that, so that's been cool. But there's been things like clients putting off weddings and engagements, so workloads have shifted, particularly on the jewellery side. The assay office was shut for a while, which means you can size pieces, you can't necessarily finish them. But I've also split my time between being a metal worker and a potter, and my communal pottery has been shut down, so I've been working solo with Radio 4 for 12 weeks, so I'm quite glad that things are lifting and I can get out and see a few more people.
So what, looking back at the competition, what would you say to somebody that was thinking about going in the competition next year? What would your advice to them be?
Well, my experience has been, it's been fantastic. So a real encouragement to go for it and try. I think read the brief, understand the brief. Obviously creativity and doing something new is really important, but at the same time need to be balanced with making it. And I think, yeah, find a big idea. I'm somebody, if you look for a big idea that you can own and celebrate, would be probably my thoughts. And
you, Scott, how would you take that?
Yeah, I agree. The ceremony itself was a fantastic evening, and I believe that was enough of a prize in itself. It was just to be a part of that ceremony and be down in London for the weekend was just lovely. So I would definitely encourage people to enter. And my advice would be, yeah, it's a good excuse to be bold and be brave with a design. You don't necessarily get an excuse like this to be as creative and pushed as you can with a brief like this. So I would try and annoy some traditional silversmiths, and I would try and push the boundaries of a design, because this is a safe way of doing that in in a competition. Yeah.
So, Andy, if I may say so, I believe that once you were in Scott's position, we didn't have a Champagne Gosset section at that time, but I think you won silversmithing design section when you were at college.
I certainly entered. I've always entered, and I was thinking about it today actually prior to coming onto this. It's 40 years ago now since I was in Scott's position, so it's been a while. But I've always held the GC&DC in the highest esteem, and from we were encouraged at college to enter, which was fantastic, and we carried on afterwards, and to have had the privilege of holding your position as chairman for the last couple of years has been fantastic. So absolutely, I mean, I agree with David and Scott. It's absolutely, I think it's essential for people to enter.
Well, for my part, I don't know whether you realise I trained as a silversmith rather than as a jeweller. And again, we might have been in the same year. 40 years ago, I went in for the silversmithing 3D, I think, rather than design, I can't remember. But it was so important to me, as you just said, to go up on stage to take a certificate and a handshake from the Prime Warden. And there's no doubt about it. For me, it was, I could almost say life-changing. It just put me on a different trajectory, just made me feel different about myself and my work. And so I would always push anybody to give it a go. What can you lose? And it can only get better. And we're lucky enough to have such fantastic patrons with the Champagne Gosset. You really have helped us tremendously. And I think these two guys here are really showing the importance of a live brief rather than, as I said before, just an abstract brief. That's great, but it really doesn't have the same meat on the bones. It certainly doesn't for me. It's a real purpose to the design, and the fact that it's being made up with Andy's help, and then going to be seriously used by you in France is a tremendous position for us to be in. Thank you.
Welcome.
So, have you thought of what the brief will be for next year? I'd love to think you'll be back with us.
I had the question in my mind just right now.
Okay.
It's gonna after the champagne glass and the price with the bottle. It's gonna be complex to find the right brief.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
But we'll find one.
Yeah, I'm sure we actually will. Alma, do we have more questions? Was that the idea, or?
Hi, Peter. Yes, we've got one question from Jonathan Sheridan, which I will read out. This is for Champagne Gosset. How is the appliqué on the Gosset to be made? Or maybe actually for Andy, if an appliqué is the approach.
What do you mean by appliqué?
I think it's the method of applying the Champagne Gosset logo or the design onto silver.
I guess, Andy, that's a question for you.
Absolutely. We're going to use that same technique. So it's going to be designed in 3D and then printed, and it will be printed so we're talking about the sort of cipher at the top. It's going to be printed in wax, and it will have the curve on it as well in wax, and then it will be direct cast. So going back to the manufacturing image, the little section at the bottom that we were talking about and David commented on, that is ready. That is actually a wax, and that is ready to be 3D cast, and the top part will be the same. So it'll be a really nice traditionally it would have been called cut card development, and then that will be pinned or soldered on in place.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, Andy. Are you going to sweat solder it on, or are you going to pin it on?
Yeah, I think these things always look better if they're pinned on, because you can get a perfect finish behind.
Yeah.
Perfect finish in front. Behind. Yes.
Yeah.
So would you pin it and laser it, or pin it and rivet it?
Possibly pin it and laser it.
Yeah.
So it's
no pressure there. You decide under your own in your own time.
Yeah. Well, these lasers, 40 years ago, we didn't have access to those, but we certainly do now, and we use them on a daily basis.
So I think, shall we move along very slightly and start to talk about our lockdown challenge that we've just taken? Thank you, Benita. So I think really you're going to put this over to Andy and talk us through. We've got some slides of the runners-up, and that will culminate with a winner.
Okay.
Alan's going to pop us up some slides, I think.
So from memory, Peter, we had 23, 24 entries. And you can see here the shortlist. 5, 6, 7 pieces.
Yeah.
So this was again, this was pretty difficult actually, but the panel of judges, luckily including myself, were really encouraged. I think the most important thing for us was to make sure, as David mentioned earlier, the brief was obviously important, and we wanted to make sure that we chose the piece that hit all the points that we were talking about, and these were the real strong pieces. And I think we ended up with a very short list, of which you'll discuss in a minute. But each of these pieces had very strong merit, and I think we spoke about these pieces actually for quite a long time, if you remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were really exciting, and for their own merit individually, they all could have been winners. This selection, but the piece that did eventually win just edged it and I must say it was a general decision as well. That was the most important thing.
So just to elaborate, we had several judges, yourself, myself, more council members, and a couple of representation from Champagne Gosset as well. So we had a varied input, technical, aesthetic, but a good overall panel, I thought. Probably 6 of us.
Yes.
Yeah. So should we go through one by one?
Okay.
Yeah. In no particular order of merit, these are the finalists, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the top, the cup and the saucer. I have it on. Oh, it's gone. We'll start about this one then.
So I think generally what we really liked here was the sort of natural feel of the piece, and also the again, going back to David mentioned earlier, the beautifully presented design. It's got everything. It's got the size. You can instantly see the size. It's got images that their inspiration has come from. It's also got an image of the potential way that they would make it, and they would apply the detail. So an all-round really good package design. And I tend to think that if a member of the public was looking at this and you'd presented that as maybe a gift for an anniversary, or in this case as a specific use, that would be really favourable to the client. And that's why that's why it really caught our eye.
It's a very good-looking piece, and several of the judges said that that would be the one they would want to take home with them.
That's very true.
Yeah. Okay, well done, Sarah. Let's move on to the next one. Kevin Gray. Oh, incidentally, I should remind everybody that we don't know who's put the pieces in as we're judging them, so there are no names on the bottom. It's completely anonymous.
So this piece again, I remember took a lot of conversation. It was really well received, beautiful design. Yeah, I just it ticked all the boxes again, really. And it was, as I say, I can't really, all of these pieces were really close.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous. Great artwork.
And technically, obviously, would have been challenging to make, but now I know who designed it. I know it would have been made, and I'll look forward to seeing it, actually. And
exactly how it would have been made. Possibly, I don't want to criticise, but the very slight difficulty with that rendering is that it's not 100% clear how the piece would be made up or how the designer envisaged it being made up.
Yes, we came to the conclusion from a practical point of view of how it would be made, and I think yeah, the only thing that maybe we could have done with as well here was a cross section, a sectional view, so that we could have seen what it looks like if you held it up to your eye. So yeah, that's the only slight disadvantage of this one, but nevertheless the merits of all of these were very strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Now this one takes a second or two just to really get into, or literally get under the skin of it.
I really like this piece. Again, this took a lot of conversation from all the panelists. It was just the way it feels, the way it looks, the way you could envisage it all working, and a lot of thought. Certainly hit the brief. So again, yeah, a real strong contender.
Stunning piece of work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This piece probably had one of the strongest. It's probably one of the strongest entries in terms of its really hitting the brief. I mean, so much thought's gone into this piece, so much design in detail. You just get a snippet there from reading it, but another really strong contender, and would possibly be challenging to make, but nevertheless it could be made.
Visually incredibly striking.
Yes.
So what would your thoughts be in terms of building it? Would you be looking at technology here and 3D printing it, as you were talking about, or conventionally making that?
I think definitely printing that one, designing and printing it. Well, the design's there already, so we could turn that into a CAD drawing to be able to print. And as far as the actual build-up is concerned, we could look at possibly welding it together, possibly, or even potentially just having a sort of a core structure that it sits on. But we really like this piece. It was really there.
It sounds like we did incredibly well with the 6 finalists. I mean, they're all very strong pieces.
Exactly, they are.
Okay, Benita, shall we move on?
I think the next one is the winner, so I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Oh.
The drum roll.
Right.
Yes. Cue the winner. Thank you.
Well, Peter, this was just pipped it from all the others. from all the judges' points of view, it really did. From my personal point of view, it really, going back to what I said about David's and Scott's design in the other competition, this really would work. And not only would it work, it's actually mass producible as well. We could easily make lots of those quite quickly. But the most important thing is it really hit the brief. It had everything that we were looking for. And again, there were quite a few of us that would say that we would like to have that piece at home.
Yeah. But it ticks so many boxes, Andy. The design's great, presentation's great, practicality's great. It comes apart, you can clean it easily. What we decided as we were judging, if you remember, it's actually multifunctional. So although it's a coffee cup, I'm sure you could drink champagne from it. Not that that was the intended brief. So yeah, it just, for me, ticked so many boxes, and it's a lovely piece.
Absolutely, I agree. So congratulations to Clive. And
we very much hope we'll see that made up, because it's got a lovely tactile quality to it, I think. I'd really like to get that in my hand and use it.
Be interesting to hear what the other panelists this evening think of it.
Personally, I love it because I always drink my coffee in a glass. So it goes to my taste.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
David and Scott?
Yeah, I know. Great design, really interesting, the relief and texture, so it'd be really nice to see it in the flesh, and nice to have it sort of asymmetric. You can see how you could handle it, but at the same time it's not fallen for a sort of symmetric design, so it's got that interest about it as well. So yeah, really nice piece. Practicality, double wall glass, keeps your coffee hot, keeps your hand cold. So yeah, it's good, well thought about technically.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Scott?
Yeah, I enjoyed this board aesthetically. You know, a final render, like a large final render like that, is really pleasing to the eye. And yeah, a great design as well. You know, I like how they specified how the glass will be removed, and it's a really considered piece. It wasn't just done at the last minute. I think it's a very nice piece, and I'd love to feel that with my hand as well. I really want to hold it up. Yeah, very impressive.
Excellent. So I think, well, congratulations to Clive. I'm really, really delighted with that. And first recipient of our lockdown challenge. So I would. That brings me to the next challenge that we have. We are going to announce that, I think, next week. On Thursday of next week, we have another challenge that we've been doing with a jewellery challenge, and I think we're going to announce the results of that next week, and also have a slightly different touch to the evening. We have a couple of designers that are going to sit in, and they're going to talk about their approach to presenting work for clients or for competition, and talk about the process that they go through, share and hopefully answer some questions. John Ball will be with us as well, and I think Catherine, who is my vice chair at the moment. So do we have any more questions, Benita? Maybe not.
No
I've seen some nice comments coming up on screen.
Hello. Clive Bullivan is online, so congratulations, Clive, from everybody. And I think everybody has like great comments actually in the chat, so thank you very much. And thank you, Peter, for hosting as well today.
That's okay. The mouth's gone a little bit dry, but I've more or less got through it. I really, this is a fabulous format. I'm so grateful to patrons that have joined us from France, and obviously the prize winners. But this is just so nice that you've been happy to be spend the evening with us, or the hour with us. It's been great fun. And a great insight into what it takes from, obviously, the competition entrance. Then we've got the middle ground, which is Andy and myself, which are the judges. And then key part of the whole process is the patron, because as I keep saying, this doesn't work without having a really good reason for doing it. We've got fantastic designers, silversmiths, and judges. Andy's a fantastic silversmith and designer, and to mash the whole lot together in a way that is really meaningful. That's what we like to think that we do at the GC&DC. Really important stuff. So that might be where we're at, I think.
Yeah, that's a wrap, guys.
I'd like to thank everybody for watching as well, and some lovely comments, as Benita said, some good questions, and let's see you all again next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Okay, cheers.